Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. Jack Hayes thought he'd left danger behind when he left the Marines, but the real battle began when his HOA's drone, run by the ruthless Karen Blitz, shattered his wife's skull in their own backyard. Now Jack's fight isn't on the front lines. It's at home, against a silent war in the sky. I bought this house with the sole purpose of building peace. After years in the Marines, some of them in places I'd rather forget, all I wanted was a stretch of land, a sturdy fence, and the freedom to drink my morning coffee without scanning rooftops. North Carolina had offered me that. Quiet mornings, slow sunsets, and a backyard big enough to get lost in. My wife Lauren and I had made this place our sanctuary. She'd always loved the sound of birds more than car horns, and after her job went fully remote as a medical consultant, it just made sense to put down roots where the air didn't taste like brake dust. The community itself was mostly calm. Retired folks, a few younger families, one or two wannabe suburban emperors. Our home sat on the edge of the neighborhood. Large lot, lots of trees, barely visible from the street. Just how I liked it. When we moved in, the local HOA seemed like a background nuisance at best. A few welcome flyers, some passive-aggressive emails about mailbox color compliance, and one in-person visit from the president, Karen Blitz, 60-something, stiff as varnished pine, and spoke like she'd memorized every regulation known to mankind. I shook her hand once and instantly knew she was the kind of woman who'd take notes if a leaf fell in the wrong direction. For months, everything was fine. I kept my lawn trimmed, didn't park anything on the curb, and generally stayed under the radar until the first envelope came. It looked official. HOA letterhead, bolded print, a page of formal wording that boiled down to, "We're watching you." Specifically, they'd attached a photo of my backyard. Lauren was sunbathing, fully clothed, mind you, in a two-piece that covered more than most gym gear. Alongside her in the shot were a couple of our friends, tossing a frisbee. The note said something about visual clutter, unauthorized gatherings, and a vague aesthetic code violation. There was no rule citation, just a warning. My eyebrows nearly broke orbit. At first, I figured someone must have taken the photo from the greenway behind our property, but the angle was too steep. That image came from above. I went back through my home security footage, the good stuff I'd installed myself, and after some digging, I found it. A drone. Small, silent, and sneaky as hell, hovered about 20 feet above our deck for almost a full minute before veering off. I stood up from my desk, my jaw clenched so tight it creaked. No HOA rule justified air surveillance. I didn't sign up for that when we bought this place. I printed the frame of the drone and added it to a copy of the letter. Then I wrote a formal request to the HOA board demanding to know what the hell they were doing flying spy toys over my house. The reply came 3 days later, another envelope, this one with Karen's signature. Her response was as smug as it was absurd. In accordance with subsection X-23 of the HOA Community Oversight Guidelines, the board reserves the right to conduct visual property assessments from aerial perspectives to ensure community compliance. Your household was selected at random. No data has been retained unless a violation was observed. Subsection X-23, my ass. I'd read the bylaws cover to cover before buying. Nothing in there gave the HOA the right to hover anything above private property. I had a bad habit of memorizing codes and policies from my military days, and this wasn't just overreach, it was fiction. I wrote back, this time quoting FAA regulations, made it clear that aerial surveillance without consent was legally dubious at best. I CC'd a legal contact just to turn up the pressure. No response this time, just silence. Lauren tried to shrug it off. Maybe it was a mistake, she said. Maybe they sent the drone for someone else. Maybe, I said, but I didn't believe it for a second. Then came the second letter. This one included a close-up shot of Lauren reading by the pool, a soda can on the table, an empty towel on a chair beside her. This time, the violation was listed as potentially unauthorized use of accessory structures and presence of unregistered guests. Again, no citations. Again, the photo came from above. And again, no drone registered on any public database in the area. I didn't know whether to laugh or break something. That evening, I took a lawn chair, dragged it into the backyard, and sat under the open sky with a pair of binoculars and a scoped air rifle by my side. Not to shoot, not yet. Just to make a point if anything showed up. Nothing did. But my gut told me we were being watched all the same. The next day, I bought an additional wide-angle camera, mounted it near the roofline, and set it to record continuously. I didn't tell Lauren, no need to make her feel more violated than she already had. That night, lying in bed, she rested her head on my chest and said, "Are we overreacting?" I hesitated. No, we're underreacting, and they're testing how far they can push. The silence after that felt loaded. Somewhere out there, above the treetops, a little mechanical mosquito was watching, and whoever controlled it just poked the wrong bear. It didn't take long for things to escalate. After the second letter with the drone shot photo, I stopped assuming coincidence. That drone wasn't wandering. It had purpose, timing, targets. I began tracking its movements, and it didn't take military training to figure out its pattern. Late mornings, weekends, usually when Lauren was outside, reading, gardening, or just enjoying the damn sunshine. Always from the south, slow approach, short hover, then retreat east. So I upgraded, installed a fixed zoom cam under the eaves with motion detection calibrated for aerial movement. The first hit came the next day, 11:38 a.m. The drone drifted in from over the HOA clubhouse side, coasted across our yard, and hovered no more than 15 feet above the ground. I caught it full frame, 4 seconds of pristine video before it zipped off. Lauren still tried to downplay it. It's probably just some neighborhood kid with a new toy. "This toy sends letters with my wife's pictures attached," I said, not blinking. I started asking around, low-key, neighbor to neighbor. First was Pete, the guy across the street, retired Air Force. He closed his garage door before speaking. "That drone's been over my place too. My wife caught it near our bedroom window last week. I was going to report it, but, you know." Karen. I knew. I heard similar things from 2 others. Passive-aggressive notes about lawn chairs left out too long, guests parking off alignment. Always after drone sightings. Nobody wanted to go on record. "She'll bury us in violations," said one mother of 2. I already got warned for hanging pool towels on the fence. That same week, another letter showed up in my mailbox. This one was technically about property clutter. It included a photo of a single garbage bag leaning next to the bin before collection day. I checked the camera logs. The shot was from the drone taken at 7 a.m., just before sunrise. Lauren was still asleep. I was just back from a dawn run. The drone hovered for over a minute before backing off. It didn't just surveil, it stalked. That crossed the line. I wrote another formal complaint, this one addressed directly to the HOA board. I quoted FAA Rules Section 107.39, prohibition of drone operation over people without consent. I cited state law regarding expectation of privacy on residential property. I didn't demand, I warned. I included timestamps, video evidence, angles. A week passed. No response. Then a new letter from Karen. Single page. Bold type. "Your recent communication has been reviewed. The HOA reserves the right to visually monitor community compliance. No rule violations were recorded. Please maintain property standards." I reread it twice. There was no apology, no clarification, no mention of the drone. Only this, an insert copy of updated HOA bylaws, hot off the printer. New edition, Section 5.3.3, unmanned aerial vehicle observation may be conducted for the purpose of preserving neighborhood harmony and verifying visible compliance. It wasn't there before. I'd archived the previous version. She was rewriting the rules after breaking them. I brought it up at the next HOA meeting. Karen sat at the head of the table like she owned it. Blazer, pearls, little American flag pin like she was running for mayor of the subdivision. I calmly laid out the facts, drones over private property, violations of FAA guidelines, fabricated bylaw amendments. She didn't flinch. "Mr. Hayes," she said, "if your household has nothing to hide, these procedures shouldn't be concerning." The room went quiet. A few heads turned. One board member cleared his throat, but said nothing. "I don't answer to surveillance," I said. "Not in my country, and not on my land." Her eyes narrowed, but she didn't respond. I left without waiting for the meeting to end. That night, I installed 2 more cameras and put up a laminated sign on my back gate. Private property. Aerial surveillance prohibited without consent. FAA regulations enforced. The next morning, the sign was gone. Torn down clean, just the screws left behind. That's when I stopped treating this as neighborhood drama. This was a Cold War, and Karen was already playing dirty. It was the first Saturday in weeks I hadn't planned to fix, monitor, or confront anything. Lauren had just gotten back from a virtual conference and wanted a quiet day in the sun. She made herself a citrus spritzer, grabbed a novel, and slipped into one of those lounge chairs by the pool we'd dragged out last summer. I was cleaning the smoker on the side deck, focused on stubborn carbon, when I heard her laugh at something in her book. One of those carefree, melodic sounds that made all this land and sweat and expense worth it. Then I heard something else. A low hum, subtle but rising. I looked up just in time to catch the flash of plastic against the sunlight. The drone again. It dipped down from over the HOA fence line like a hawk scoping prey, hovering low and tight, unnaturally close this time. Less than 10 feet above Lauren. I dropped the grill brush and started toward her, already yelling. She turned, confused. Then it happened. The drone twitched midair, jerked sharply, then nosedived. I watched it spiral, a fast, tight, corkscrewing plunge, and slam straight into the side of Lauren's head with a hollow, snapping thud. The blades shattered. She cried out and collapsed sideways off the lounge chair, blood already running down the side of her temple. I sprinted across the yard, screaming her name. Her book lay face down in the grass, stained red. She was conscious, dazed, her hand fluttering weakly to the wound. Blood pooled in her hair, soaking into the towel beneath her. "Don't move," I said, kneeling beside her. My voice cracked. "Don't move, baby. I've got you." Pete came tearing across the yard from next door, already dialing. "Ambulance is on the way," he shouted. "They said 5 minutes." I could hear the sirens before I even got the pressure on her wound right. Lauren blinked up at me, eyes unfocused. "What, sir, was that?" "Drone," I said through clenched teeth. "It hit you." "Karen," she mumbled. "That bitch." The paramedics arrived in a blur. I stepped aside, my hands covered in her blood. They stabilized her, packed her into the gurney, and one of them asked me if she had any history of head trauma. "No," I said. "She does now." Police showed up a few minutes later. 2 uniforms, young, wary, clearly unsure what the hell kind of domestic drone call they'd just walked into. I gave them the short version. Pete backed me up. We pulled the wreckage out of the bushes. The thing had cracked on impact and embedded one of its arms into the lawn. The body was still largely intact, including the camera. One of the officers sealed it in an evidence bag. The other asked if I wanted to file a report. "Damn right I do," I said. "That thing was operated manually. Someone flew it into my wife's skull." "We'll need a statement," he said, "and any camera footage you've got." "You'll get it, and more." As they packed up the evidence, I saw her, Karen, standing across the street in her driveway in a pressed blouse and yoga pants, arms crossed like she was posing for a catalog. She didn't look panicked, just irritated. Like we were ruining her Saturday. I walked straight toward her. She took a step back, then another, until she hit the edge of her lawn. "You sent it," I said flatly. She lifted her chin. "I don't know what you're implying, Mr. Hayes, but I have nothing to do with any incident. That was your drone." "I don't own any drones." "Save it," I said. "You'll be dealing with police and FAA and lawyers. My wife is in an ambulance because of your obsession." Karen's eyes narrowed. "Perhaps you should focus on cleaning up your own yard before casting blame. If your wife hadn't been—" "Say one more word," I growled, "and I'll have you cited for obstruction on top of everything else." She didn't. She just walked back inside like nothing happened. That night, at the hospital, Lauren lay unconscious for nearly 6 hours. The doctors said it was a mild concussion with a laceration that required 12 stitches. A few inches lower, and the blade might have caught her eye. I sat by her side, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the blank hospital wall, already planning what came next. If Karen thought she could hide behind bylaws and denial, she'd never met a man like me. The day after the hospital, I didn't go home. Not right away. I took Lauren back to the house, settled her into bed with ice packs and blackout curtains, then made sure Pete and his wife would check in on her every hour. Then I drove straight to Bruce Merrill's office. Bruce was the kind of guy you wanted next to you in a bar fight. Calm, seasoned, and just a little dangerous. We'd served together overseas back in the day. Now he was a civil litigation lawyer with a specialty in personal injury and land use law. He took one look at the blood-stained drone shell I brought in and said, "Jesus, Jack, you weren't kidding." I wasn't. We spent 2 hours reviewing the footage, drone entry, flight path, the exact moment of impact. Then we combed through the HOA correspondences, every letter, every violation, every fake rule Karen had ever cited. Bruce's brow got lower with each page. She made up this section, he muttered, holding up the so-called subsection X23. It's not even in the county bylaws. Hell, it's not in your HOA charter either. I've seen their filing from last year. She rewrote the rule after I confronted her, I said. I've got a copy of the old version to prove it. He nodded. Then we've got two paths. Civil lawsuit for damages and medical bills, and criminal complaint. That drone hit Lauren. That's assault via negligence, maybe worse. Intentional. That's what we'll prove. While Bruce began drafting the complaint, I reached out to the FAA, left a message with their local field office about an unregistered drone operating below safe limits over private property. I didn't expect much. Bureaucracy usually grinds slow. But by noon the next day, I got a call back. The agent sounded serious, said the FAA had received 3 other informal complaints from the same neighborhood in recent months, all involving drones flying under the 55-foot line. I gave them everything: times, coordinates, video, the device remains, even the flight pattern logs from my camera system. The agent promised a follow-up and asked if I'd allow a technician to come recover the drone for technical analysis. I said yes. Hell yes. That evening, Pete dropped by with a USB stick. Figured you'd want this, he said. Caught the drone hovering over my daughter's window last week. Got it on cam. Didn't say anything till now because, well, didn't want to make trouble. Trouble's here already, I said, accepting the drive. When I plugged it in, I saw it. Clear video of the drone. Same make, same markings. Holding steady just outside a second-floor window. Through the blinds, silhouettes moved. Pete's daughter and her friend. It was sickening. I sent the footage straight to Bruce. His response was fast. This changes things. We're not dealing with a one-time incident. This is systemic. Bruce contacted the police with the new video, and within a day, a detective named Martinez showed up at my door with a search authorization request. They wanted the drone remains for evidence. I handed it over, along with everything else. Photos, logs, audio snippets, my entire archive. The detective asked if I had any idea who controlled the drone. Karen Blitz, I said. She denies it, says she doesn't own one. He smirked. Funny thing is, we already ran a preliminary IP check. The Wi-Fi module inside the drone was connected to a residential router registered to a K Blitz at 42 Wayland Circle. That was all I needed to hear. By Friday, Detective Martinez called again. Mr. Hayes, we'd like you to come down to the station next week to give a formal statement. We're opening a broader investigation. And just a heads up, you're not the only one who's come forward. Turns out, Karen's paranoia hadn't gone unnoticed. 2 other families, both with kids, had submitted incident reports after learning about Lauren's injury. One even had audio recordings from a backyard party where the drone hovered and recorded voices. Bruce added those to the growing complaint. Meanwhile, Lauren, recovering slowly, headaches still sharp, tried to stay strong. But I could see the fear behind her eyes now. Every buzz outside, every breeze that rattled a screen door made her flinch. She didn't feel safe in her own yard. And that, more than anything, lit a fire under me. The drone wasn't a toy, it was a weapon, and someone was going to answer for it. I didn't sleep much after that. While Lauren rested in the guest room, she said the bedroom window made her feel exposed. I stayed up late every night sorting files, backing up footage, organizing names, dates, timestamps. It felt like I was prepping for an op. Old habits. Except this time, the battlefield was my neighborhood, and the enemy wore designer khakis and a smug expression. By midweek, Bruce had assembled enough to file a full civil complaint. Personal injury, invasion of privacy, harassment. We listed the HOA as co-defendant. The claim that Karen Blitz, acting under the color of her authority as HOA president, had launched and operated surveillance drones over multiple private properties, resulting in physical injury and emotional distress. He served the papers personally. I would have paid money to see her face. The local news got wind of it 2 days later. I didn't tip them off. Someone else must have. Maybe Pete. Maybe one of the other neighbors now stepping forward. Either way, once the headline dropped, HOA drone strike injures woman in backyard, president under investigation, everything exploded. That same afternoon, a black SUV rolled into our street. FAA inspectors, 2 agents, both in windbreakers, all business. They interviewed me in my garage, then took statements from Pete, the neighbors across the cul-de-sac, and the family with the audio recordings. The kicker, FAA had subpoenaed ISP records for drone telemetry data. The results came in faster than expected. Mr. Hayes, one of the agents said, reading from a printed report, the drone that struck your wife was operated from a mobile device connected to a home Wi-Fi registered to Karen Blitz. Same signal was used on 7 prior recorded incidents, all involving low-level flight over private properties. Is that enough to act? I asked. Oh, we're acting. At that point, everything moved fast. A warrant was issued. County police, along with FAA agents, showed up at Karen's house at 9 a.m. on Friday with a search team. I stood across the street with a mug of coffee and watched as she was led onto her porch in fuzzy slippers and a robe, protesting in full Karen dialect. This is outrageous. I have rights. I'm the HOA president. Didn't seem to impress the feds. They went inside with hard cases and came out an hour later carrying 3 drones, 2 laptops, and a small black server tower. One of the agents gave me a nod on the way out. The news vans arrived before lunch. This time, I did give a statement. Not to stir drama, but because people needed to know this wasn't just a feud. It was surveillance. Targeted, repeated, and deliberate. The fallout spread fast. 3 more neighbors went public, adding their names to the civil suit. One of them, a young mom named Melanie, revealed footage of a drone peering into her kid's bedroom window at night. Another found saved stills of his wife changing near their pool, taken through the blinds. Bruce compiled everything into an evidence packet the size of a phone book. The complaint evolved into a class action, damages requested 7 figures. Karen, meanwhile, had lawyered up and started spinning the story. She blamed a contracted surveillance consultant for the drone activity. Said she had no knowledge of the drone's operations and that the injury to Lauren was a tragic technological malfunction. Unfortunately for her, the FAA disagreed. The logs showed manual override controls, human input, GPS routes plotted, hover times logged, directional adjustments made in real time, no autopilot, no random flight paths, and every login was traced to her phone. Detective Martinez held a press briefing. We have found compelling evidence that the drone involved in the incident was operated manually and intentionally positioned to observe specific residences. This qualifies as illegal surveillance under both state and federal law. Furthermore, due to the injuries sustained by Mrs. Hayes, we are considering felony negligence charges. Karen was taken into custody the next morning. No cuffs. Not yet. But escorted, quietly. She wore a scarf and oversized sunglasses like she was starring in a low-budget courtroom drama. Her house was declared a potential digital crime scene. The HOA board held an emergency meeting that evening. By then, the rest of the neighborhood had turned. The same people who once nodded politely at Karen in the mailroom now crossed the street when they saw her. A few even came to my door and apologized, not for what they did, but for what they didn't. One of the board members, an older guy named Frank, came clean, said Karen had been pushing the drone program for months, called it proactive compliance monitoring. Most of them didn't know she was keeping footage, but none of them stopped her either. Cowards. Bruce filed a motion to hold the HOA collectively liable, arguing that their silence and failure to act constituted complicity. The court approved it. The HOA's insurance carrier, a mid-sized regional firm, suddenly had a very expensive problem on their hands. The investigation was still ongoing, but one thing was clear. This wasn't about neighborly disputes anymore. This was a digital invasion. Coordinated, sustained. And someone finally said it out loud during a community meeting that weekend. She was watching all of us for months. The court date was set for 6 weeks out, but the real battle had already begun. Karen was released pending trial under strict conditions: surrender of all electronic devices, no contact with HOA members, and, per court order, no use or proximity to any unmanned aerial systems. She broke 2 of those rules in the first 10 days. First, she sent a group email to the HOA mailing list claiming victimhood, accusing me of manipulating a smear campaign, insisting she was a patriot safeguarding community values. That triggered a contempt hearing. Then, 2 days later, a neighbor spotted her in the park fiddling with what looked suspiciously like a remote controller. Police confirmed it was a decoy, but the message was clear. She wasn't backing down. Meanwhile, Bruce and I were building the class action like a fortress. More families kept coming forward, each one bringing fresh horror stories. Drone footage of children, private conversations recorded from backyards, even one clip of a teenager and her boyfriend on the back deck, clearly unaware they were being watched. The more we dug, the worse it got. The server retrieved from Karen's home contained a hidden folder structure, encrypted at first, but Bruce's tech guy cracked it. Inside were over 600 video files organized by address and date, some with labeled folders like pool issues, unauthorized decor, and repeat offenders. And then we found something else, something worse. A folder marked simply Interior. Inside were 15 videos, not outside, inside. One showed a couple's living room through a slightly cracked window. Another zoomed through blinds into a master bedroom. One of them was Lauren and me, taken through our kitchen window during dinner. The drone had hovered silently in the dark, catching moments that were never meant for anyone else's eyes. I remember staring at that screen and feeling something cold settle in my chest. "This isn't just spying," Bruce said. "This is voyeurism, felony grade." We handed it all to the DA's office. The charges were updated within 48 hours. Invasion of privacy, unlawful surveillance, aggravated harassment, and a new one, possession of unlawful surveillance material with intent to distribute. Karen's attorney tried everything: stall tactics, procedural delays, a motion to suppress the drone evidence on grounds of unlawful seizure. Denied. Bruce, meanwhile, got a court order freezing HOA assets pending resolution of the civil case. Their legal insurance carrier balked and started whispering about dropping coverage. That shook the board. Half of them resigned within a week, including the vice president, who gave a sworn affidavit that Karen had operated independently and deceptively, using HOA funds to purchase and maintain the drone fleet without board-wide consent. But receipts told a different story. Bruce uncovered internal expense reports buried in meeting minutes, listed under technology upgrades and visual safety program. The checks were signed by 3 board members. That sealed it. The HOA wasn't just looking the other way. They'd been bankrolling the operation. We added them back into the suit, full throttle. News coverage swelled, local turned regional. Journalists showed up on our street with microphones. HOA horror stories were hot that month, and ours had drones, blood, and a woman named Karen. Media gold. I hated the spotlight, but Bruce said it was helping. Pressure gets leverage. Public attention makes judges careful. Lauren, still healing, kept mostly indoors. Her concussion symptoms had eased, but the emotional toll hadn't. She started sleeping with curtains taped shut, flinched at buzzing insects. Worst part, she blamed herself for being outside. "No one gets to make you feel unsafe on your own property," I told her one night. No one. She didn't say anything, just held my hand tighter. One morning, I woke up to find an envelope on our porch. No return address. Inside was a letter, typed, no signature. "I'm sorry, I didn't know what she was really doing. I thought it was just for lawn violations. I never imagined it would go this far. Please know not everyone here agreed with her." Cowardly. But something, I guess. The final twist of the week came from the FAA. They'd concluded their investigation. Karen's drones had violated in no less than 23 federal regulations. Unregistered aircraft, flight under minimum safe altitudes, operation over uninvolved people, night operations without waiver. But the big one, use of drones for surveillance and data capture without consent on private property. That alone carried a multi-year sentence. Bruce called me that afternoon. They're going to prosecute federally, which means prison time, real time. I didn't celebrate, not yet. But the weight I'd been carrying, from Lauren's blood in the grass to the blank stare on her face at night, started to shift. Karen was going down, and this time there would be no HOA clause to save her. The courtroom was full by the time we walked in, reporters in the back, murmuring neighbors lining the benches, and 2 rows of stiff HOA loyalists who still clung to the fantasy that Karen was some sort of misunderstood guardian of community virtue. Bruce and I moved to the front, Lauren at my side, moving slower now, steady but guarded. She wore a scarf over the faint scar on her temple. Her eyes never left Karen. Karen sat with her defense attorney, a rail-thin man with too much cologne and a binder full of excuses. She looked different now. Not frazzled, not raging. Composed. Almost smug again. Like she believed this was all just another nuisance she'd swat away with the right quote from a bylaw. The judge didn't see it that way. Opening statements hit hard. The prosecution laid it all out. repeated aerial surveillance of private property, unregistered drone operations, physical injury due to operator negligence, unlawful capture of private interior imagery, and intentional misuse of authority for personal control. Bruce followed with the civil case narrative, a years-long pattern of abuse masked as community oversight. An HOA turned into a tool of domination, families intimidated, watched, and silenced, children recorded, women filmed without consent. One of them, my wife, injured in her own backyard. Then came the evidence. The FAA experts took the stand first. They confirmed that all 3 drones seized from Karen's home had internal logs of their flight paths, none of which complied with federal standards. All operated manually, all routed through her home's Wi-Fi. One of them, the very drone that struck Lauren, had an active camera feed pointed at our yard for 4 minutes before the incident. Then came Detective Martinez, calm, thorough. He testified about the files found on the home server, the structure of the folders, and the fact that most were time-stamped well after dark, in clear violation of FAA night ops restrictions. When the prosecution displayed stills from the interior folder, the courtroom went dead silent. The judge ordered the most graphic footage sealed, but one still frame of our dinner, Lauren smiling over a glass of wine, stayed on the screen for 3 full seconds before the bailiff clicked it away. Karen's attorney objected. Claimed the footage could have been tampered with. Claimed the devices were potentially borrowed. Claimed the real operator might have used Karen's home as an access point without her knowledge. The jury didn't buy it. Especially not after the technician from the drone manufacturer testified. Every drone was registered via serial number on their app, and the app login was tied to Karen's personal email, her cell number, and a credit card bearing her name. Then came the other families. One by one, they testified. Pete spoke with the quiet rage of a man who'd watched his daughter become paranoid in her own room. Melanie sobbed while describing how her toddler now feared the sky. Another woman described receiving anonymous compliance letters, citing things that only someone inside her yard could have seen. And finally, Lauren. She walked to the stand, slow and steady, swore in, and then told them everything. The moment she was hit, the ringing in her ears, the feeling of falling, the panic when I shouted her name, the cold steel of the gurney, the lights above the ER bed. But what got to everyone, even the jurors, was when she talked about the aftermath. Every time I hear a buzz, she said, I flinch. Every night I check the curtains. I don't sit outside anymore. I don't garden. I don't swim. I'm scared of my own sky. Even Karen looked away. The court broke for recess that afternoon. Bruce leaned over and whispered, We've got them. He wasn't wrong. Karen's lawyer requested a plea deal the next morning. Reduced sentence in exchange for cooperation, full admission, and surrender of all digital records. The DA refused. Not after what we saw. Trial resumed. The judge ruled Karen guilty on all counts. The sentence came down hard and fast. 7 years for unlawful surveillance and digital invasion of privacy. 5 years for negligent physical harm with a prohibited aerial device. 2 additional years for federal aviation violations. 14 years total, no probation, no suspended sentence, immediate remand. Karen stood frozen when the sentence was read. The smirk was gone. The courtroom erupted, not in cheers, but in a kind of quiet, collective relief. A long exhaled breath that had been trapped for months. Lauren gripped my hand, tight. The HOA was ordered to pay $450,000 in personal damages to Lauren. $1.2 million in collective compensation to the affected residents. Complete reorganization of the HOA board under court supervision with a legally binding clause banning any future aerial surveillance. Later, as we stood on the courthouse steps, reporters threw questions like hail. I ignored them all. I looked up instead. The sky was overcast, peaceful, and empty. 8 months later, the world had shifted. Our backyard looked the same, lawn trimmed, pool quiet, lounge chairs back where they belonged. But the silence meant something different now. It wasn't the same kind of silence we lived with during those weeks after the drone strike. That silence had weight, like a net pulled tight around us. This was lighter, restful, ours again. Lauren was laughing more now. She'd started painting. Abstract things mostly, color bursts, swirls, layered chaos that somehow landed exactly right. I didn't ask what they meant. I didn't need to. She'd gotten a tattoo too, just above the scar, a small black hawk in flight. "Take back the sky," she'd said with a grin. The new HOA board had been formed 2 months ago, under strict court monitoring. The president now was Frank, the only board member with enough spine to apologize under oath. They'd enacted the no-fly zone clause unanimously, printed it on every welcome packet, and stuck signs around the neighborhood that read, "Surveillance-free community, residents' privacy protected by law." Most people supported it. A few grumbled, but no one argued in public anymore. The settlement money helped. The HOA paid out fast. Insurance was eager to close the chapter and avoid more press. Lauren and I used a chunk of it to rebuild the back fence, extend the patio, and install a proper garden, roses, lavender, lemon trees. She called it her quiet zone. I just liked the smell. Pete built a barbecue station. Melanie's kids ran barefoot again. I started hosting monthly community fire pit nights, unofficial and unapproved, which made them perfect. And there was the plaque. We'd mounted it on the inside of the new fence just above eye level. Brass plate, laser engraved. No HOA seal, no dedication date, just the words, "The edge of private property begins where curiosity ends." Visitors always asked what it meant. I usually let them guess. The FAA sent a formal notice a few weeks ago, thanking us for our cooperation in the investigation, citing the case as a landmark example of civilian action in response to unlawful drone surveillance. They were drafting new enforcement guidelines because of it. Karen, she was locked up at a low-security federal facility in Virginia, no parole hearing for at least 8 years. Rumor was she was trying to file appeals from inside, citing character defamation and excessive sentencing. Bruce called it the legal equivalent of flapping your arms and hoping to fly. We'd stopped checking the updates. Let her rot in her own logic. I stood out back one morning, coffee in hand, watching the sun rise over the lemon trees. The breeze moved like breath across the lawn. Calm. Clean. Then I smiled, reached down, and grabbed the string of the kite. It was one of those cheap paper ones, red, with a gold star on the tail. Lauren had found it at a thrift shop and dared me to fly it again, just once. So I did. It caught wind fast, spiraling upward in wide, bold loops. No hum of rotors. No camera lens, no violation, just air, just sky, just freedom, and not a single soul above us but the birds.